Judging by what we have seen in previous weeks, we know exactly who will be the main character of the second episode, who will be the villains, the main location, the main plot twists, and also a huge number of different secrets. And for starters, we have to go back to February and remember this leak from Glitch, which shows Pomni sleeping. And accordingly, it became clear that since this leak of the second episode was the first one, this scene will open the new episode. And if you remember the scene where Pomni starts to turn into abstracted monster, then I am 100% sure that this scene is just a dream that Pomni saw after all the horror she experienced during the whole pilot episode. And I think that meeting with abstracted Kaufmo and the time period when she was on the verge of turning into that monster was the most memorable and powerful part of her memory. And then in the preview for the first season of the amazing digital circus, Kane suddenly bursts in. And that's where the fun begins. Everything that was shown in the preview has no value for us, unlike the scene with Pomni and one of her cubes where they safely crashed into each other, and then Pomni started glitching. Perhaps Kane scared Pomni, and most likely all the inhabitants of the digital circus tent so badly that Pomni fell, and we saw this. And the logical continuation will be the meeting of all the inhabitants of the digital circus together as it was many times in the pilot episode, and this scene shows us that. And actually a fragment of this scene was shown to us a long time ago, which also confirms my version. Then most likely our characters had breakfast and spent some time in peace. But after a couple of scenes, we will see how Kane again gathered everyone and sent them to travel through Candy Canyon Kingdom, and in general everything is clear. But we don't see Zooble, and apparently she decided to support her trend of the pilot episode and again abandoned Kane's adventure, which probably made Kane very angry, and if in the pilot episode we saw a rather light punishment, now I'm afraid to imagine what Kane will do to Zooble, considering that during the rest of the trailer, we don't see this character anymore. And let's remember this leak where Zooble says something to Jax. Maybe she was asking him to talk to everyone else to get them to give up the candy adventure. Once our residents got to Candy Canyon Kingdom, things initially went well, and some of them even experienced satisfaction, such as Gangle, and surprisingly, this is the first time in a long time that we see Gangle so happy, but not for long. In Candy Canyon Kingdom, we meet Princess Lulalu, who will most likely tell us that somewhere in the territory of the kingdom, there is a very cunning alligator called Gumu, and he has his own gang. But to be honest, these two don't look like reliable partners. Their names are Max and Chad, but we don't really care about that. So Princess Lulalu gives us a very important task that is not as easy to accomplish as it may seem at first glance. We need to find Gumu and his boys to take something from them, and I think the main mission is to save the binoculars. I agree with you that it sounds strange, but this is the amazing digital circus. In the previous episode, a giant worm ate Zooble, so it's no surprise. But then there's the obvious question, why couldn't Princess Lulalu just meet the guests and show them around? The answer is hidden in this moment, which if you zoom in reveals a very interesting detail. We see a mural on which some character is depicted, and most likely it is Kane, because he is the main administrator of this amazing digital game. And I think that's when we find out that Candy Canyon Kingdom is not an independent location. And yet we remember how Kane once revealed the secret of the Void and said that it was just one of his unfinished projects, and that if Candy Canyon and everyone who lives in it is just the final project that was originally the Void. That's funny. And then our characters led by Jax went in search of alligators and most likely found their shelter. And then we realized that Gumu is not just a negative character, but the main villain of the new episode. And after our circus inhabitants, and most likely Jax, didn't think of anything better than to steal the second truck so that Gumu would go after them, they did steal it, and since we know that Jax is a great shot, he decided to give the control of the truck to the most depressing character. And then Jax felt in charge again, and this time Pomni was in his sights, apparently determined to jump on Gumu's truck and somehow steal the binoculars. But we've all seen how that turned out. And then Jax decided to take control of the truck and decided that ramming the other truck was a great idea, and I suspect it was after that the circus truck went astray, but the Gumu truck was also damaged and spun around a lot. And from this scene, we understand that Gumu ordered Max to climb on the roof and push Pomni off, but after the collision, Max himself fell, while Pomni managed to hold on. Jax went back for Max, and they went to a place very far away from Candy Castle where they took Max prisoner. And the funny thing is that in this location, instead of the ground, we see a small layer of some liquid. And while the rest of the circus residents decided to look around and figure out where to go next, Jax stayed behind to watch Max. And you'd think he wouldn't trust anyone else to do the job, so he decided to stay behind. But I think the others, most likely Regatha, just forced him to stay. And since in the next scene from this location we don't see Max, but we do see the binoculars, I have a theory that Gumu was able to find the kidnappers of his partner and exchanged him for the binoculars. But the question about Pomni remains open, because after that, we never saw her again. Most likely Gumu just got tired of her and decided to dump her somewhere in this so-called lake. But what is very strange is the moment where Jax and Max stand calmly on the water, but then we see Pomni flying out of the water with great speed, and we realize that after that, the main events will take place on the lake. But maybe it's the sea? But it doesn't matter. After all the characters saw the amazing flight of Pomni, Jax again decided that he is in charge, and without asking anyone just took control of the already floating truck and went towards Pomni. And in the previous video, I already told you that no one paid attention to this rock that hides a lot of interesting things, and most importantly, we realize that that's where our characters are stuck. And if you think that this so-called accident that made Jax very happy and Regatha very angry happened because of the natural terrain, think more carefully about why Pomni could have been so much out of the water and who could have helped her. And also maybe Regatha is not angry, but on the contrary, very frightened and so expresses her emotions? It is quite possible, and the next shot confirms it, and we see Fudge Monster taking control of the truck with passengers and wants to eat it very much. But apparently our friends managed to get out and escape from this monster, and after that our circus people went in search of Pomni, which judging by the trajectory of movement fell near the place of takeoff. And then a miracle happened, and apparently Pomni was found, which can be seen in the following scenes where the whole cast of familiar characters met Princess Lulalu, who greeted them very kindly after their return. And I think all those friendly dummies were very happy to see them back. After that, we saw Princess Lulalu hand Regatha some strange key that has already become one of the main secrets of the new episode. Some think it's the key to the truck, but even if you think about it a bit, the truck was in the first half of the episode, and this scene is clearly the end of the episode. Some have suggested that the key is just a symbolism and has no value and is just a souvenir from the princess to thank her for her work, but again, that's too easy for Gooseworx. And so I'm more inclined to believe that this key will play a role in the episode, and we will see Regatha open one of the doors inside Candy Castle with this key and see a huge table with sweets in front of him. And after their dinner, they are joined by Kane, who gives them the good news that they are returning to the digital circus. Also, let's discuss some of the latest leaks. I would like to discuss this image that was published yesterday by Glitch. And apparently even the creators themselves did not expect such an interesting episode. But apparently on May 3rd, we will see something unimaginatively delicious. But what intrigued me much more was the image itself, where the chaos is going on. Kane, as the chef, personifies the main man in this so-called kitchen and just watches as if nothing is happening. And I think he's even happy with everything that's going on. And we all thought that this episode could be a happy one for Gangle. But with just one leak, Glitch crushed all our hopes, and I think Gangle was not chosen by chance. Look closely and you'll see a cake that appears to be the culprit of this fire. And this cake symbolizes the happiness that was supposed to wait for our characters in Candy Canyon Kingdom. But together with it, the hope for a happy future of the circus inhabitants was burned. And Gangle's face at this moment literally screams to us about it. And on this leak, we see a very strange scene where Jax and Pomni are running away from a crowd of mannequins who in the trailer welcomed them very kindly. And we also see Kane, who like in the previous leak is very happy with everything that is going on. And if we pay attention to Pomni, she tries her best to escape from this crowd while Jax looks like he doesn't care and just walks away from them. But why were these characters shown as positive in the trailer, and now they are furiously running after Pomni and Jax? They may seem negative towards the circus people, but I'm sure they're just expressing their hospitality. But don't forget to say hello to them, as Glitch told us. Maybe the dummies are a reflection of the place they are in, and since we found out that all the Candy Canyon residents liked the circus people, they just don't want to let them go home and run after them to spend as much time together as possible. Or maybe it's just an image that makes no sense, but we will only find out on May 3rd. But in the meantime, I'll keep you happy with new videos as often as possible. Have a good day, everyone.